The United States and Russia have been at war for a long time, and Russia is constantly subject to sanctions, but all attempts to cut off oxygen for Russia were not working. But in this video, I will tell you how the United States can really destroy the Russian economy in a few years. In this video, I also interviewed two Russian guys, one of them an entrepreneur, the other a trader, and they told me a lot of interesting things about the sinking of the Russian economy. Don't forget to subscribe. US President Joe Biden said that in the near future, it is planned to implement the most severe economic measures to influence the Russian Federation, which will destroy the economy as soon as possible. At the same time, such measures have very negative consequences for other states. According to some experts, the sanctions will not come as a surprise, since the Russian economy has been preparing for this for a long time. Many international experts are confident that the prepared large-scale sanctions, which are planned to be implemented due to the military invasion of Ukraine, can lead to the collapse of the Russian currency, stock market, and other forms of financial panic. The key consequences usually include the fact that not only billionaires and members of the government will suffer, but also ordinary Russians. It is customary to single out the imposition of sanctions on large domestic banks and numerous financial institutions as fundamental measures of influence. As a result, Russians will have to prepare for a significant deterioration in the quality of life. There will be only questions and answers in the interview. Let's start with the entrepreneur. His name is Dmitry and he is 27 years old. His business is related to timber processing, and that's what he told. Next, it will be from his words. My company is engaged in wood processing, we have sawmills, and we are sawing wood. I started in 2015, and then everything was fine. We worked with Chinese teams, in other words, they sawed birch, which was further exported to China, and then to the United States, in the form of wooden products. Everyone was very good, the margin was high, they worked non-stop. The first prerequisites for the collapse began in 2017, when 90% of Chinese brigades simply left Russia because the United States imposed certain sanctions on China, and the birch tree became unnecessary for them. At that time, I stopped my production because there was no sale for wood left. It was pointless to saw it into the local market because marginality allowed us to somehow go to zero at huge costs and risks. In 2020, I returned, Chinese teams started working in Russia again, and we started sawing birch again. Everything was going smoothly. But with the beginning of the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, the United States cut off the oxygen to Russia completely, as well as to China, because money for the purchase of wood began to go to military aid to Ukraine, and China again lost sales. Then the whole format of the work had to be rebuilt, and we started sawing pine. The next stage was that Russia began to block oxygen as much as possible, and factories that used to buy lumber, for example, for pallets, began to close. There are only a few factory workers left all over Russia who simply have to buy the entire proposed volume from suppliers like me and larger enterprises, but because of the sanctions, exporting wood is becoming harder and harder. Where these sanctions will lead us is still not clear to anyone. There are traders all over the planet. My financial manager introduced me to a trader from Russia, and then it will be from his words. I've always traded on my savings, it was around $10,000. This may be a ridiculous amount for America, but in truth, 75% of Russians do not have such savings, so it was a very significant amount for me. But since trading on futures is in the region of 5–15% yield, it took me steadily from $500 to $700 to live. Capital could not be made in this way, and I had to look for prop companies to get an account. There are not so many such companies in Russia, and almost all of them do not have the best conditions for a trader. That's why I started looking for companies among foreign ones. And 90% simply refused to work with citizens from Russia. We were simply crushed by sanctions, and it started personally in my field from 2021. Of course I found the company I work with, and I really hope that I won't be kicked out of it. These are the stories the guys from Russia told me. At some point I felt sorry for them, but let's still treat such things coldly and get back to the essence of the video. The US government, desperate to destroy the supply chains of Russian oil, decided to go into the flank and strike from an unexpected direction. The White House is working on a program of massive foreign investments in agricultural production. The main goal, as in the case of energy carriers, is to reduce the sheer presence of Russian farmers and fertilizer producers on the world market, minimize export revenue in this area as much as possible, and, if possible, occupy a Russian niche. Against the background of endless publications on the topic of natural gas and oil, whose quotes and transshipment volumes are monitored in real time, agricultural products are lost in the very distant plan and completely in vain. Because not all inhabitants of the planet refueled the car, but everyone wants to eat every day without exception. This is exactly what can affect the entire Russian economy, and if Biden's plans work, Russia will collapse. If the hydrocarbon market can be described in broad strokes, then in the sector of production and export of agricultural products, the devil hides in certain directions and details. For example, the world's largest producer and exporter of palm oil and its byproducts is Indonesia, which produced 46 million tons in 2022, supplying $17 billion worth of products abroad. The number one soybean exporter is the United States, which has sold more than 2 billion bushels of beans abroad. By the way, China, a key buyer, took advantage of this fact during the first trade war. Beijing blocked soybean imports for a while, which led a huge part of the American agricultural sector to a groggy state, and Washington sharply reduced the intensity of anti-Chinese rhetoric. China grows more than 23 million tons of garlic, covering 80% of world trade. India is the absolute leader in rice cultivation. The Indians supply about 20 million tons for export alone. The Philippines, with an indicator of $1.5 billion per year, has no competitors in banana exports, Nigeria in the cocoa bean niche, Iran in the watermelon trade, and Brazil has overtaken everyone in sugarcane exports. Russia does not lag behind the framework of agriculture, but it is in serious danger. On the other hand, over the past year alone, the Biden administration has bankrupted more than 50 large nitrogen fertilizer plants in Europe. That is, the productivity of European farmers this year is entirely in the hands of the United States. It is foolish to think that the Europeans, who once refused super profitable gas contracts, will persevere in the purchase of ammonium nitrate. What do you think about this? The results? Be sure to write your opinion in the comments to this video and like it. I tried very hard for you and took 2 small interviews with 2 Russian citizens who suffered greatly from the sanctions on our part. I hope for your support. Thank you all for watching. See you soon. By the way, a new video in 2 days.